Welcome to Anniston Museums and Gardens. I'm Education Director Amy Gray. We have had so much fun discovering the interesting history of the Berman Museum. Today's 25th anniversary video covers the highlights of the last decade of operations. The great thing about the Berman Museum collection is its ability to connect guests to historical and memorable times and places.
You know, because I'm at the age, I tell people I'm a senior citizen now. So I've seen the world evolve, and just to see in some of these things I can come in, I can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at this and you think about where we've come, especially some of the Esplanade things, how small things are now compared to what they used to today. So that's what's sort of amazing to me that I look at is how much of life that I've lived, and I can see it when I walk through here, the life that I lived, and I can see where it's evolved, and to bring my grandchildren here, because I have 9 grandchildren now, so to bring them here to see those things to them, it's going to be something they saw on TV, but some of the things I can see that actually were there, and I think that's what the whole thing that a museum does. You can see things that you only see on TV sometimes, or some things that can bring back, you can reminisce and remember, be nostalgic, remember where you once were, and I think that's what's so great about this. You can actually visit the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was your first impression when you visited the Berman Museum?
Well, my first impression was wow, especially when I walked in and saw all the bronze statues, the Russells and the Kublas. They're quite amazing. The collection here, you would not expect to find this. It is truly, I read somewhere in a travel guide that it was a hidden gem, and the Berman Museum truly is a hidden gem. And then being in the military, and you see all the different military artifacts, and it's just, it really is amazing. And especially with the rotating exhibits, and always growing, always changing, and there's always something new. It's just fantastic.
Girls, what about y'all? What was your first impression?
I remember so you have the new spy room now, but there was like a little section of the spy room, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever, because I mean, there's a lot of historical aspects that most younger kids like don't understand sometimes, but if you have like cool gizmos and gadgets, then people are like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, I can shoot a dart out of my flute if I really wanted to, so.
I thought when I saw both of the museums that the natural history one, it was amazing because it had all these animals and everything, but this one's good on the history, and because my generation has their head in their phone all the time, so we need the history.
To expand on that topic, let's hear about the Pearl Harbor redesign that took place in 2018.
The Pearl Harbor exhibit is a wonderful exhibit, and when you have letters from people like Francis Roberts there, the last letter he wrote home, which was dated Friday, December 5th, 1941, and where else are you going to find things like that?
Yes.
And we happen to have 2 people from this area, including Francis Roberts, who were entombed on the USS Arizona.
Yes, that surprised me
Yes.
that you have, I mean, I say that many, but 2 people from the same county
Yes.
in that, on that day.
And I wondered, did they know each other?
Right.
Because there were a lot of men on the USS
Yes.
Arizona. So would they have known each other? Would they have known how closely connected they really were? To have a piece of the USS Arizona, which we received some years ago from the U.S. Navy, it was the largest piece of the Arizona they had ever sent out. And part of the reason that we got that was because of having someone entombed on the Arizona.
Okay.
But to have that here and to be able to look at it, and it's a small piece, although it's the largest they had sent
Right.
out, but it's still a small piece of a ship, but still you think it was there.
Mm-hmm. Is
Yeah.
that the piece that was acquisitioned to the collection during your time here that maybe sticks out the most that
Yes,
okay.
yes, because it took about 10 months to get here,
Okay.
and because it was so heavy it had to be crated and shipped.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted it for our Pearl Harbor event, and we did get it here, and so that was a pretty big deal.
So if you could share with us the process of how the Berman Museum was actually able to acquire that piece of the USS Arizona.
Well, retired Admiral Kent Davis was on the board of the Berman Foundation, and he knew that the Navy had a program to make pieces of the Arizona available to museums or educational institutions or veterans groups, and he put me in touch with someone in Hawaii who put me in touch with the person that I really needed to be in touch with to ask about acquiring this piece. I had to write a letter justifying why Berman Museum should have this. So I wrote the letter and justified why we should have it. And of course I mentioned that we had someone from here entombed on the Arizona, and we're trying to keep his memory alive. At the time, we just knew about him. We learned about the second person later. But just having him, and that we were trying to keep his memory alive. So the fellow kept working with me, kept calling me, and he said he had identified a piece, and that's when he told me, he said, this is the largest piece that we've ever made available to anyone. And we had to pay for the shipping and all of that. But we also had to promise that we would not use it, we would not commercialize it. We wouldn't use it as a fundraiser. We wouldn't sell it, and that we would treat it with reverence and respect. And we agreed to do that, and we got the piece of the USS Arizona, and it's right here in Berman Museum.
A very poignant part was just after, or on or about last year's, 2019, it was before COVID, the Pearl Harbor exhibit. Because there were folks at Pearl Harbor who still have family in this community, and they were highlighted in our presentation. Making it come alive, bringing it back into the community and back out to show that what this community does in the world. It's not all far away at a different time.
Another great way the Berman Museum connected to audiences was through our D-Day Remembrance celebrations.
Something I'm very proud of is that we developed a co-worker that was here, David Ford. He and I developed the program for the 70th anniversary of D-Day, and we wanted to honor our World War II veterans. It became a program that I was extremely proud of, and I think probably the most profound thing that we did, while I was here. I mean, it's always fun to, and I think it is profound to educate children, but to see these gentlemen that, gave up their life and went and fought, and so many did not come back, but many that were able to attend our program. It was interesting. They were so thankful to us, and so I just found that just very, I don't know, it was very emotional, and I felt very good about that programming. And it was a community effort. David and I, we did not know military protocol, and I learned so much. Made a lot of good contacts, good friends through that. We were hoping for 100 guests. We wanted to be sure that we didn't want just our veterans to show up and nobody else, and you never know on that. We had a whole, we had generals and colonels and admirals lined up, and they were all here. And so we had set out 100 chairs, and we were out in the parking lot, and so those chairs filled up. And all of a sudden, I'm on the phone calling maintenance and security. We had tour buses, we had senior citizen buses just coming down the road. And of course, I'm standing out there excited and horrified.
Right.
You know that feeling.
Yes.
And you go, okay, what do we do? So the staff was wonderful. I mean, basically the whole staff of both museums just jumped in. We had Berman Alliance. I remember the ladies, Linda Mann and Nancy Denny and Lynn Isom, they all, they just took over and handled. we started throwing chairs out. When it was all over, we had over 350 people.
Wow.
So it was very successful.
Yes.
Finally, let's take a look at how important it is for the Berman Museum to be in Anniston, Alabama.
Well, we were searching for people magnets and giving people more reasons to come into the city. And so this was a natural to accomplish that. And so it was extremely important. One of the things our council did that I was proud of was to have a planning retreat early on. And we identified 10 action items for our council during our term. And building this facility was one of those action items.
I think the item that's resonated most with me has to be Edith Roosevelt's dress. Now this is the president's wife. Her dress is here, which is pretty cool because I've always been a political guy. Getting to see a presidential anything is pretty sweet. But let me tell you this, you may not know this. It turns out that Edith Roosevelt's grandfather was General Tyler, who was one of the founders of the city of Anniston. Right, so, you know, again, such a great town with so much history, but such a great museum here at the Berman with so much history. I mean, you have tea sets from dictators and samurai swords from samurai and you know, presidential wardrobes and whatnot too. It's so awesome. It is such a rarity to have such an amazing asset in a town like ours. I mean, it speaks to why Anniston is so special, you know?
Well, I've just seen this just grow and continue, and the interest that is continues here, and the exhibits, and every time you change. And when I had Alan Robinson as the director for the campus, how you all do so much to impact the quality of life with so little. And that's what's so impressive to me. And I see this continues to grow. And you would think 25 years that we would still be here and we still grow and we still do those things. And I think a lot of people don't understand a lot of things that come in are on loan and the things that you have to keep up. And it's not very easy to do this thing and what it costs and some of those things that you do. And it continues the economic impact that this has on this city when people can come here and talk about how great this museum, because I have a chance to actually hear people who have been here from other places. And we're not just talking US, we talk about people even overseas that have been here who have sent things back and say how great this is and how much a jewel this is in a city of this size.
Yes.
It's really amazing.
This city's different, you know, to have the museum, to have the Main Street, to have the history, and everybody falls down, but it's not so much about how many times you fall down or how hard you fell. It's always about how you get back up again. And these museums, this city, have always been an embodiment of resilience and inspiration for the people around it, you know, and I've always been a fan of the underdog, and I think the best asset our underdog town has is our great museums that are certainly top dog. So again, I couldn't encourage people more to come out here.
Oh yes, we would always go down to the house and see the collection, or afterwards, everybody could come see it here, and it, like getting to see all those animals in the other museum, it's an extraordinary thing for a town of this size to have something like this.
Yes.
I like the Oriental section, the Asian art, because we lived in Korea we spent a lot of time stationed in Korea. So to see some of those ancient from 2,000 years ago is just phenomenal. So, yeah.
The stories you hear about Colonel Berman and Mrs. Berman, and coming on board and walking around, and you bump into people that either knew them or heard the stories of them and keep repeating the stories that Colonel Berman would be the guy to go pick up the VIPs inside a fancy car, and he would almost be the chauffeur. And yet when they went to dinner that night, then he was the guy coming in as the the host, and things like that were just amazing. And the fact that he accumulated so many things during his World War II time, when he was spying on the future Mrs. Berman and Colonel Berman, and they were spying on each other. So just an amazing story, and glad that it's here. And glad that we can continue to share that story with so many in the community.
Such a tourist attraction You know, people would come into town and often would not know about this until they got here. They would go to the Anderson Museum of Natural History and then come here. So it was always kind of the afterthought. And I think it has started coming more and more into its own. But you have to remember, 25 years seems like a long time in some ways, but in other ways, for a museum, that is very young.
Right.
Thank you for joining us as we've taken a look at the past 25 years of the Berman Museum. Join us next week for the final celebration video as we explore what staff is currently working towards and what the future of the Berman Museum may look like.